Good evening. Welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. One of the marketing geniuses that I follow fairly religiously on social media, and I've worked with him in the past in Mississauga events, is Husam Jandal. He's a world-renowned digital marketing consultant and business strategist. He runs his own marketing consulting company. And he wrote recently a blog that I found, an article that I found really quite interesting, called The 6 Essential Marketing Lessons Learned in 2021. Husam Jandal, welcome to our show. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. How about you?
Very well. Thank you so much. So what are the 6 essential marketing lessons that you learned that we should all learn in 2021?
Sure. I'll be happy to share those with you. We have seen a lot happening over the past year or so, and it's important for all of us as consumers and as well as businesses to be really acquainted with what we've learned over the past year and make sure that we use that learning as we move forward into this year and the years to come, and continue to improve. There were many things that we have learned last year as far as marketing goes, and I have tried to focus on the ones that are most impactful and most important, especially to businesses, so they can continue to.
I have to tell you, one of them is very specific to marketing and businesses, but the other 5 I thought were pretty relevant for everyone in everyday life.
That's true, and unfortunately, sometimes businesses are not as aware of common sense, and that's why maybe you've related to all of them as and we all do as consumers, or most of them. But yeah, maybe the first one that I can share is to stay flexible. I think that's one of the first learnings that I've identified from last year. And that's because things are constantly changing. We are living in the COVID world, and we continue to live in that world, and things are rapidly changing. And I know that puts a lot of strain on us human and people, but also it puts a lot of strain on businesses. However, due to these constant changes, and every day we hear new restrictions being resumed by certain governments from within the country and around the world, as businesses, we have to adapt. We have to be ready to adjust. We have to have a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D to keep running and to keep going. For example, there were some recently announced restrictions by the Ontario government. And about an hour later from the announcement of those restrictions, I have received an email from my karate dojo, the gym I go to practice karate. And they said that we're still open, online, because they will have to continue going and keep running their businesses. So again, the first learning that I would be happy to share is to stay flexible, be ready to change, be ready for changes to come, and have plans ready for you to continue operating and doing what you want to do as far as business goes in whatever means available to you.
It's interesting because not 2 years ago, but like almost 2 years ago, in March, April of 2020. So, 2 months shy of 2 years ago, when we just started this pandemic, I spoke to a lot of different companies, and some were all about flexibility and pivot and adapt. And others were, hunker down and let's wait it out. And if the ones that just tried to hunker down and wait it out, they're still waiting.
Yeah, if they're still in business, unfortunately, exactly. Many businesses have resisted change and being adaptive and flexible, and they have become no longer relevant, and they couldn't survive. But yeah, absolutely, we have to remain flexible as businesses, and of course consumers as well, and people have to remain flexible as we go through these different changes. But yeah, let's all stay flexible. Let's be prepared.
I think the principle is correct. Is there a way that you become more adaptable to change? Is there a way that you stay more flexible? Is there a principle that you've learned?
Definitely. So have multiple plans. Be identify what could be the worst case scenarios and what would be the best case scenarios, and make sure that you have strategies that you can deploy right away as things keep changing around you, instead of having to wait for the last minute and being presented with a surprise as far as the business environment, and then it would be too late for you to do anything. So I would highly encourage business owners and business leaders out there to have multiple plans, identify your best case scenarios and your worst case scenarios and anything in between, and define detailed strategies and plans that you can implement right away based on the changes around you happening in the environment.
I spoke with a business continuity expert, and he had a good suggestion. What he said is, you got to sit down, you got to do what if analysis, which is something you got to do in business and you got to do in your personal life. And he said, sit down and brainstorm, what if a whole bunch of different scenarios. What if the economy closes down? What if inflation goes up? What if monetary policy changes dramatically? What if interest rates go up? And he said, do it as well from a personal standpoint. What if mom and dad can't come home? What if someone gets sick? What if someone passes away? That you really got to think through those different scenarios, and if not plan for them, at least be mindful that those things could concern. It's the old idea of black swan events, that you got to be aware that they could happen and think through what you would do and how quickly you could adapt to them.
Yes, absolutely. And established businesses have done that in the past, but not to the level of variety that we're seeing today. For example, I'm sure you've heard about crisis management, and businesses for centuries ago, they have been investing in crisis management and crisis planning. And what we are going through today is pretty much a crisis, if we like it or not. So having different options identified and being prepared for them is crucial.
We're chatting with Husam Jandal. He runs his own marketing consulting company. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Husam in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. It's a real pleasure of mine tonight to introduce you again to Husam Jandal, who is a marketing expert, a consultant. He runs something called Husam Jandal International. He calls himself a digital rainmaker. Before that, he was international marketing consultant with Google Partner Academy. He was a professor of e-commerce and e-business at the SP Jean School of Global Management, a digital marketing consultant with WSI Digital Marketing, a business consultant in Saudi Aramco, King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, where he got a Bachelor's of Science in the Management of Information Systems. Quite the resume. And from a volunteer standpoint, I came across him when he was working with the Mississauga Board of Trade, and he was vice chair of that Board of Trade and involved in the Board of Trade from 2013 to 2017. Also very involved in the Community Foundation of Mississauga, and a digital marketing advisor for numerous different not-for-profit and charitable organizations. So you've done a lot of marketing, you've done a lot of consulting, you've done a lot of digital work, and you've done a lot of charitable work. Thank you for all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Let's take a step back for a second before we come back to the six lessons, and tell us what is Husam Jandal International, and more importantly, what's a digital rainmaker? I love the title.
Sure, thank you. So what I do is, and my business, it's a marketing consultancy practice. That's what I really enjoy doing. And I focus on working with businesses that aspire to grow and that are serious and dedicated to achieving their growth objectives. That's what keeps me going, and that's what I enjoy doing the most. Although I have consulted with Fortune 100 companies and multinational businesses from all around the world, today I focus more on small to mid-sized businesses that are dedicated and as excited as I am about growing their businesses. A digital rainmaker is the title that I probably invented. That's really to portray what I do. I let the rain comes through the activities and the strategies that I implement for my clients.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get back to the 6 essential marketing lessons learned in 2021. And the first one was flexibility. What are some of the others?
The second one that I would love to share is that digital has become a lot more important than ever. Businesses have no option to avoid the internet and being part of the internet in its different facets and different channels that are available. And the reason for that, because with the pandemic, we rely on the internet more than ever. And we have seen some stunning growth rates within the internet usage and social media usage over the past 2 years, and in particular over the past year. Now, we also have seen some interesting trends. For example, based on some recent researches, they suggest that we as consumers, 70% of us are shopping online and offline simultaneously, which hasn't been as much before. Typically, you'd find a segment of the population that likes to shop more offline than online and vice versa. But today, we have all adapted and we started to use the internet a lot more for our day-to-day purchases. At least 30 to 40% of the population are saying that they started to buy on the internet or buy online. And the trends are stunning in terms of how we rely on the internet today to make purchasing decisions. And that's why digital has become a lot more important than ever. And it's now crucial for businesses to be there in a relevant and strategic manner, to allow them to connect with their target audience and be in front of their target audience at the right time and with the right format.
And you talk about a bunch of different behaviors that you've got to get involved with. Tell me some of them.
Sure. So, for example, we have seen Generation Z and millennials spending a lot more time on the internet than before. On average, it's between 43 to 46 more minutes every single day that we're spending, in particular, on online shopping. Which is, again, it's a lot of time if compared to previous behaviors, and there are a lot more details, of course, mentioned on the article. And I would encourage your audience to go and read the full article if they are interested to learn more about the details. And of course, they can choose to receive my biweekly newsletter complimentary. They can, of course, subscribe on the website if they wish to get more educational information about digital marketing. But yeah, in simple terms, we cannot avoid the internet as businesses to survive and to continue be in front of those who we are aiming to communicate with and aiming to target.
So you had 5 major things that we need to do: content marketing, SEO, social media, omnichannel, and rigorous testing. Can you spend a minute just telling us about each one of those?
Yes, absolutely. As we spend more time on the internet as consumers, we are also hungry for more in-depth information instead of just shallow marketing messages describing, whatever products or services that are available on the internet. So spending enough time on developing in-depth and detailed content to help consumers making decisions is crucial. And of course, because we're using the internet a lot more often than before, and that with the fact that our internet journey usually starts from a search engine such as Google, it's very important for businesses to continue investing in SEO, search engine optimization, so they can show up when someone is searching for something related to what they offer. The same on social media. We have started using social media a lot more than before. We've picked up some hobbies on the internet and we start to engage a lot more on social media with each other as human beings. And therefore, businesses will also need to be part of that conversation. Omnichannel is perhaps one of the most interesting items there. And the reason I'm saying so, because now, as I mentioned earlier, more than 70% of us would shop online and offline. And therefore, we would expect a seamless experience as we transition between these two channels, i.e. from retail to going to a website. If a business has a brick and mortar store or stores, they will have to have that seamlessly connected with the online experience that they are presenting in terms of consistent offers, consistent messaging, having enough details about the store on their website, and opening and operating hours, and making sure that they're constantly updated, and vice versa.
So is omni-channel really just being consistent between what you're doing online versus what you're doing offline? What I don't understand exactly what omni-channel means.
Omni-channel means using multiple channels to deliver consistent messaging, and that's what I mean by that. And it's important not to look at these channels independently, but collectively they will have to present a seamless experience. For example, I could go to a website and I would see that they have a certain discount on an item, but if I really want that person to come to the store, I could offer them a greater discount, or vice versa. But then when they show up to the store, they can come, for example, with a QR code offer printed, and they can show it upon arrival, and then they can get access to that offer instantly without having to go through a lot of hassle or struggle. So omni-channel is really integrating the different experiences that we're presenting to our target audience and make sure that they are cohesive and consistent.
Okay, excellent. And rigorous testing, what do you mean by that?
So as we go through a lot of changes in terms of the way our target audience are responding to certain messaging and the changes in the environment, we will want to constantly adapt by updating our offerings and updating our positioning and the way we describe our products and services. But for us to get the maximum ROI from our marketing efforts, we want to make sure that we identify the best messaging. And for us to do that, that means you'll have to go through different options of that message and make sure that you test the different messages and evaluate the result of each message so you can reach to the ultimate or the ideal message that produced the best outcome in terms of communicating with your target audience, but also achieving the business results that you desire, if it was in the form of sales or lead generation or offline visits to your store, etc.
I guess, test marketing and A/B marketing and going to a test market to start with has always been important in marketing. But what you're saying is it's even easier to do with the internet, and probably more important because you got to make sure that you're getting the right message out.
Yes, absolutely. And there is an abundance of testing tools out there that can make the data gathering for your digital messaging a lot more easier, and allows you to quickly reach to a winning version of your message or of your offer or of your product positioning, etc.
So I've heard this concept about SEO, so search engine optimization lots, but I don't understand what it really is. Can you explain how you actually do SEO?
So you would do SEO by optimizing and improving multiple elements on your website and outside of your website to encourage the search engine to rank your website higher on search engine results. Now, this is very high level. If I were to go a little bit deeper, it would probably take 15 minutes. And if I were to fully describe it, it would probably take me 15 days. but at a high level, you will need to invest in making sure that your online presence, most of the time a website, is rich in content. It has the type of content that your users are looking for. It answers the questions and the problems that they are trying to resolve, and that is constantly updated. And there are other tactics that can help you amplify whatever you publish on your website. For example, having an interview with Brian Crombie and him publishing the interview online and having a link pointing back to your website. That will help you in improving your search engine ranking, for example, and that is part of SEO as an example.
Excellent suggestion and recommendation. Thank you. We're chatting with Husam Jandal right now about marketing and the 6 marketing lessons that he learned and he wants to tell us about for 2021. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Husam Jandal. He's told us about the first two. The first one was flexibility, and the second one was to be more mindful of our online presence, and digital is more important than ever. We're going to go on to 3 to 6 after the break. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Chatting tonight with Husam Jandal, who runs his own marketing, digital marketing consulting company, very successful international marketer, particularly with digital. Someone who I came in touch with through the Mississauga Summit, the Mississauga Board of Trade, very involved in charitable works as well. And he has got a very active social media presence, writes a lot, publishes online quite a bit. He's a good example himself of how you have content marketing on a very frequent basis. And he wrote recently the 6 marketing lessons that we have to learn in 2021, and I thought they were very helpful. The first one was flexibility is important, and I think that's important in business and in life. The second one was digital is more important than ever, and I think that's something we've all learned, as some commentators have commented about how we may have experienced a decade or more of digitization in the last year of COVID. And we've all been shopping online and looking for information online, spending a lot more time at home and communicating online. And he had a bunch of recommendations about that. And then he's got a couple more that I think are really kind of interesting. And I was surprised by them because they really are digital, I guess, but important in real life too. And so, Husam, your third was empathy is key in maintaining relationships. How's that digital marketing?
Sure. So maybe a good intro for that is to think about the typical classification of business types, i.e. business to consumer versus business to business environments. And I like to call all of that human to human, because at the end of the day, we are human, either if you are working for a business, representing a business, or buying from a business. At the same time, we're all going through some interesting and tough times. We have gone through some major changes in our environment. According to the latest research, more than 45% of employees continue to work partially remotely from their offices. And that comes with its own challenges and its own burdens and stress, especially for those, for example, who have kids. And if kids can't go to school, that even adds extra burden or extra stress to their schedule. And with all of that, we are feeling burned out. According to the latest research that was developed around that, about 89% of the population are feeling burned out and have felt like that over the past year or so. So with such an environment, businesses cannot be isolated or ignorant of the reality out there. And therefore, they will have to adjust their messaging and adjust their communication and adjust their positioning and their offers to be close to their audience and to communicate to them given these circumstances that we are going through. And sometimes, for example, you may have to invest in something that's educational, but not necessarily related to your product, just to be relevant or to remain as part of the conversation with your target audience. For example, you would see, a company that produces office chairs, putting together a guide on 7 tips to help you change your environment or change your state of mind during the day, and remaining optimistic and positive, standing up every 30 minutes and listening, for example, to music to kind of help you go through the day. Would that something that will directly contribute to that company selling more chairs? Maybe not directly, but it will keep them as part of the conversation and top of mind with their target audience because they listen.
You know, it's interesting because there's been a bunch of stories about the Great Resignation, or a lot of people that are choosing to work in the gig economy rather than work for major corporations. And so it's almost as if during the pandemic, people have given thought to whether they want to be that corporate employee or whether they want to have a better work-life balance. And it comes back to that old line about, are we living to work, or are we working so that we can live? And I think more people, particularly with low unemployment rates, so that therefore there may be more job opportunities for the picking, and remote work is up, and so therefore, you know, working from home is not only more a bit, you know, able, but it's safer, healthier in a lot of ways, and certainly more appropriate. That people are choosing to work for themselves, become entrepreneurs, start businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give a good example by mentioning a company that's called Upwork. And their website is upwork.com, and it's a publicly listed company. It's a US business. And they have seen, and what they do is exactly what you mentioned. It's a marketplace for freelancers who can come and offer services about things that they are good at and that they are experienced with. And they can get paid by the hour, or they can get by the project. And it's a win-win situation, because for the employer, they will not have to think about employment contracts and all of that stuff. And at the same time, for the freelancer or the gig provider person, they can charge whatever reasonable based on their level of expertise, and getting the most out of the time that they spend, instead of, you know, just relying on a job that may not be as productive to them and rewarding as they wish.
Your fourth lesson from 2021 is that attention spans aren't short. I was surprised by that. I thought that people's attention span had become shorter. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So there have been many researches over the previous years that suggest our attention span has been shrinking, which could be right if you were to average where we put our time and our attention on. However, based on the most latest and recent researches, they have found actually that we are selectively dedicating more time or less time to the information that's presented to us. So, for example, we are willing to actually spend a lot more time and give a lot more attention to the things that we would like to focus on, to the things that we would enjoy learning more about. And that kind of circles back to the point that I mentioned earlier, that today we want more in-depth information about the things that matter to us, or the things that we're about to buy, or the decisions that we are about to make, instead of just high-level, superficial type of marketing messages. And I can give you more examples. 15 years ago, I couldn't expect me spending an hour listening to somebody on a podcast. Well, today we do it happily, because we are interested in learning about whatever we're listening to. However, you may go on Google, or browse a website like Amazon, and you wouldn't even give a fraction of a second to a product that you see, just because you're not interested in dedicating more attention than required for that area. So there is kind of a correction as far as understanding our behavior. We are actually willing to give and put a lot of attention to the things that matter to us, as long as they are provided to us in the right format. So, for example, again, going back to the podcast idea, what if I don't enjoy, listening to a podcast and I prefer reading an article? Then, well, you have to print that article or publish it on your website, or make it in the format of a video or an infographic, and so on and so forth.
So how do you explain, TikTok, which is just a couple of seconds, or Instagram Reels, which are 15 or whatever seconds, the popularity of those?
Definitely. So we tend to go to platforms like those mainly for entertainment, and therefore we are not really coming with the mindset of me wanting to give it a lot of attention. And that's why we're all okay watching 5 seconds videos and 10-second videos over a period of 2 or 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how much time you spend on TikTok and similar platforms. Of course, you would also want to offer different depth of information based on the stage in the buying journey that your target audience are going through. So, for example, when they are at early stages of their research, you really need to be brief. You can't over communicate to them the benefits of something that they just started to think about. But as they go through the buying journey, then you will want to provide a lot more information and richer details as they become more interested and willing to invest more attention and more time to get to the outcome they desire.
Number 5 was very surprising to me. Stand by your values. That's
yes.
I think that's an excellent rule. And it's a rule for everything in life. But is that a lesson for 2021 marketers?
Definitely. And I can support that with real life examples. So traditionally, businesses have been kind of separating themselves from the values of their consumers, and they focused more on product benefits and features instead of giving a lot more attention to how we perceive a company as consumers, or how we evaluate a company in terms of how they conduct their business from an ecological perspective. And examples that I can share, real life examples from last year. We've all heard about the cosmetic company Lush suspending and canceling their social media accounts, most of their social media accounts, such as their Facebook account and Instagram. And they have got a lot of positive feedback from their audience because of the way they communicated the reason of that decision. And I can give a lot more examples at a high level. We have seen a lot of companies going green and talking about how green their products are and how green their business practices are and how environmentally friendly they are as an organization or as a company. Well, why do they need to communicate that as part of their marketing messaging? Well, because it's important to us, the consumers. We care about who we buy from and how they conduct their business and its impact on us and on the environment. And that's why you will have to stand by your values. And sometimes you actually need to start identifying those values and communicating them to your audience instead of being disengaged and disconnected from the reality, if that makes sense.
So I've been hearing a lot of companies talking a lot more about ESG, environment, societal, and governance issues than they have in the past. You don't think this is a flash? This is something that is going to be with us, and it's something that companies have got to really pay attention to.
Definitely, without a doubt.
Number 6, keep it simple.
Yes, and that's important to mention, because after listening to all of this and talking about the different channels on digital and the different platforms and all of the things that the business will have to do to be as present as possible in front of their target audience, I also want to remind business leaders out there that you don't have to do every single thing on the internet to achieve your goals and objectives. Perhaps instead of using 10 social media platforms, just use 1 or 2 where your target audience are actually hanging around and visiting and frequenting. The same thing applies to content marketing. You don't have to produce content about every single thing that you do and every single thing that you offer. Instead, maybe you want to focus more on the topics that matter the most to your target audience today and invest more efforts into them. So the point of number 6 is, don't be overwhelmed as a business leader with regards to the enormous amount of marketing activities you have to do to get the results that you used to get. Instead, perhaps you want to focus on the 20% of activities that will produce 80% of the results.
We're chatting tonight with Husam Jandal about the 6 marketing lessons that he learned, the digital marketing lessons that he learned in 2021. And it was really kind of interesting. And, maybe we'll just repeat them. Stay flexible. Digital is more important than ever. Empathy is key to maintaining relationships. Attention spans aren't short. Stand by your values and keep it simple. Excellent marketing lessons. Husam, if people want to reach out to you to access your ideas and sign up for your newsletter and or maybe actually access your consulting? How do they do that?
They are welcome to visit my website, husamjandal.com. Through the website, they can get a free newsletter sent to them bi-weekly to stay up to date with the latest marketing trends. And of course, they can contact me as well through the website.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Husam Jandal in a minute. And I'm going to ask him a little bit about why he does all these articles and blogs and if it really helps. He actually publishes more than once a day often, and it's really kind of interesting. He's a wonderful gentleman to follow, and I think you're a real thought leader, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're chatting with Husam Jandal. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm having an interesting conversation tonight with Husam Jandal, who is a digital marketing expert. He runs his own company. He consults companies, both small ones as well as large ones, on digital marketing issues. And he's published recently an article on the 6 digital marketing lessons for 2021 that I think we all have to apply to 2022. I found it really interesting, Husam. Thank you so much. I want to ask you a question selfishly, if I could. You publish a lot, and I find them really quite interesting. And I've been noticing, for a long time that, entrepreneurs like yourself do that. And I think that makes sense for entrepreneurs. But I've been noticing a trend where a lot of major company CEOs are now tweeting or publishing blogs or doing videos and things like that. And, frankly, I do it. I do my radio show every night, and some are relevant to my business, some are not. Is that something you think makes sense? Is it something that CEOs or senior executives should be doing, creating a online media presence for themselves?
Yes, of course. And especially today, because traditionally, we used to be a lot more out there in the real world. We used to go to a lot of events and conferences and networking activities and so on and so forth. And as we have started shifting more aggressively to doing things on the internet, we have to fill in that gap. We need to still meet with people. We still need to make sure that we stay top of mind with our, not just friends, but also with our colleagues and professional connections that we have on the internet, and maintain them. And as part of maintaining that presence with those who are part of our network, we will need to commit to communicate with them on a regular basis. If it's in the form of a short tweet, every day or every other day, or to perhaps publishing an article about a new idea or a new direction, or something that's important to you as a professional or as a CEO of a business, and publishing that and sharing it with the rest of your audience and your network, which would extend beyond your immediate network, just because what you publish on the internet will also be most of the time accessible to everybody, including your end consumers. So without a doubt, and reconnecting with one of the learning points that we've covered, which was number 5, standing by your values, that's an extension of that point. So when a CEO of a company is actively communicating and publishing content that's consistent with the business values and representing that company and acting as a speaker for that company on the internet, would mean that they will have to constantly think about what they want to communicate with their audience. They cannot just rely on having the company's marketing material and social media posts and content published on behalf of the entity. In addition to that, they will need to complement it by them being active, them being communicative, and sharing your thoughts with their audience and with the rest of the world.
Husam Jandal, thank you very much for sharing with us your 6 digital marketing lessons for 2021. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your involvement in the community, and I appreciate your expertise and advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
That's our show for
Thank
tonight,
you.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm on every Monday through Friday You can get me on AM radio if you're in the Western GTA at 9:60 a.m. You can stream me online anywhere in the world, Husam, at www.saga960am.ca. That's CA for all my American friends, for Canada, not com for US and elsewhere in the world. You can get all my videos on briancrombie.com, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can get all my podcasts on briancrombie.com, Apple, Audible, and Speakeasy podcasts. Thanks for joining me. Check me out. Husam Jandal, thanks for your expertise.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brian.
Good night, everybody.